Welcome, everybody, to Redacted on this Monday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And boy, do we have a lot to talk about on this Monday. We have the selection of J.D. Vance, the senator from Ohio, as President Trump's vice presidential pick. John Adams famously said the worst and the least effective office in the United States is the vice presidency. It's the worst thing in the world, but it's taken on a whole new meaning, of course, after this weekend, after the assassination attempt of President Trump.
Absolutely. I confess myself a little disappointed I was rooting for Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah.
He was my pick, but I don't get a pick.
You don't get a vote?
No, nobody consulted me. So, but I think this will still be a strong ticket. The couple of things that you may have recalled, we've covered J.D. Vance on this show. He was one of the most outspoken person who was critical of the Biden administration during the East Palestine chemical explosion.
Right.
He is anti-war. Absolutely. He is pro-securing the borders, and he's anti-supporting foreign wars. So that's something we stand for here on this show.
He's also pro taking money from Peter Thiel. He slammed President Trump in the past. He was pro Mitt Romney. He has evolved his positions now. So, hey, people can evolve as human beings. We'll see how this...
have, for sure.
I think we all have evolved,
yeah.
So anyway, we'll see that today at the RNC, just a bigger announcement there. But that's not our main focus of the show today. We're going to look at whether or not this lone gunman acted alone as trying to assassinate President Trump. Compelling new evidence suggests that absolutely he was not acting alone. We will talk about that on the show.
We are going to talk about that and why Secret Service seemed to have been such a joke. I mean, that's the headline.
Right.
Really, what happened there and why is it so embarrassing? Our tax dollars pay for this. It is supposed to showcase our best and most capable, right? So what happened there? Was it, in fact, a DEI hire now that the head of the Secret Service has said, well, we want diversity hires? Why is that a virtue when it comes to security? We're going to look at the data there.
Ann Vandersteel is going to be joining us in a little bit to talk about the communication breakdown between the state police and the outer perimeter of the event, the Trump rally at Butler, Pennsylvania, and the internal perimeter where the U.S. Secret Service was located. Why was there this massive communication breakdown that led to this disaster? We're going to look at all of that. Plus, why was the media totally silent on a lot of the main pieces of this story? And now it seems like the mainstream media, Morning Joe and others, are having to pull their shows off the air. MSNBC yanking off Morning Joe off the air because they couldn't basically trust their left-wing hosts to say the right thing and actually be impartial.
That's not journalism. It's an example of if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Well, yeah. I appreciate that. At least they didn't offend us all greatly, but I'm offended as a journalist that you cannot display journalism. Now, President Biden over the weekend saying we need to take down the temperature of the political rhetoric, and they're saying we can't. So we'll just go off the air. We're going to take a vacation. We're going to sleep in today since we are not capable. That's unconscionable. This is something that should be taught in journalism school from now on, what it looks like to not be unbiased. It's awful, and we're going to take the piss out of them.
All right, Dallas Alexander, a former Special Forces sniper, now country music star, is going to be joining us. He went viral over the past 24 hours for his statements about the lone wolf scenario. We're going to talk to Dallas here in just a moment. But first, we have a newsletter, a daily newsletter. We would love for all of you to subscribe to it. Go to redacted.inc. It's our way to stay connected to you because big tech doesn't own us. And so this is our opportunity to stay connected with you. We own our own email servers, and all you need to do is subscribe. You'll get the newsletter first thing in the morning, roughly, when we manage to publish it. Natalie and I write the newsletter every morning. It's a perfect way to start your day. Redacted.inc is the place to go. You'll receive a welcome email from me, which is just Clayton at redacted.inc. You just need to make sure it doesn't go to your spam folder, your junk folder, something like that. Drag it over to your inbox, and then you'll receive the newsletter tomorrow on Tuesday morning. So redacted.inc. Well, did the shooter act alone, the man who tried to assassinate President Trump? Was he acting as a lone wolf, or did he have help? Our next guest says there's simply no way that he acted alone. Our next guest is Dallas Alexander, spent nearly 20 years as an elite sniper in the military and the special forces, and has gone viral over the past 24 hours with his comments on social media about acting alone or acting with help. And Dallas joins us now. Dallas, great to have you here on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me.
So your video, of course, where you said, I want to get into this and I want to make a statement about this. Can you just walk us through why you decided to speak out and what you think happened?
Yeah, I was just getting a lot of questions about it. I'm a country singer now, but I spent, like you said, a lot of time in the special operations world. And this type of operation was part of our job. So close protection and securing VIPs up to and including the Prime Minister. I'm from Canada. We protect him in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I'm very familiar with all this stuff, as well as being a sniper for almost 14 years, I guess. It just, when I saw this video, immediately, it was very fishy to me that specific rooftop was not covered. Like, there should not be a blind spot on a rooftop that's within 150 to 200 yards of, the president or former president of the United States. I was actually out, and I just saw the picture on the screen come up. I couldn't really even hear what the particular news channel was saying, but immediately, just from seeing the aerial photo, I'm like, that roof and the water tower would be the first two things that you look at and make sure are secure. And I feel like just even a child that plays Call of Duty would know that.
Right. A child that plays Fortnite would know that, right? You're being sniped from an area. Look for the high ground. Look for those particular spots. We now know NBC News just a few minutes ago confirmed that, in fact, according to the Secret Service, that rooftop spot was an area of, quote, concern for them days ahead of time. So this had been identified as a problem spot days ahead of time. So as a sniper, I mean, what do you make of that?
I mean, just to hear them say it, it's absurd. It's so incredibly obvious. Like, yes, it's at a range that you can just zero your rifle at, and there's a slope that makes the approach hidden for a shooter to crest over top and have clear aim at where Donald Trump is speaking. It makes absolutely no sense. And then for that to even be a news title is, it's the most obvious threat spot.
So can you walk me through, as a sniper, what you're looking for in those moments? And when you saw this layout, I mean, what stood out to you? Like the two snipers that had their scopes, they're aimed at that particular spot for upwards of 3 minutes. They had them in their sights. Can you walk me through, as a sniper, what you would have been looking at?
Yeah, so from their position, I'm assuming they were seeing him slowly kind of crest over the top of that, because it looked like it was sloped away from them in the back, which covered his approach, up until his gun would have been over top and pointed out. So they were probably watching slowly to crest. I'm sure they were looking to see if they could identify a gun or not. I think I heard something about there was some waiting for permission to fire as well. I don't know how that all works. Like, I'm not 100% sure on the rules of engagement and how they work between Secret Service and local police or anything like that. But he would have had him in his sight. I actually found the reaction a little bit strange, because if you're looking at a target ready to shoot for that long, the only thing, once you know the range, the only thing you're thinking about is like, when am I pulling this trigger and has my wind call changed, essentially. And so there was fire, and I saw a video where he kind of reacted and pulled back off the gun, and then I think he settled in and took a shot, is what it looked like. And that was a little weird. But I mean, gunfire makes people do weird things, so I'm not saying that's suspicious. I just, as a sniper, when you have someone in your sights like that, in a moment like that, like, you are ready to pull the trigger, like, in a split second.
Of course, you've gone viral for saying that this is, he didn't act alone. Why do you think that that's the case, that he didn't act alone?
Yeah, I just think, I believe that there is no level of incompetence that could be the explanation for this. And I worked in the government forever. I know incompetence, trust me. But this is just, it's too incredibly obvious of a position. In any type of planning, I saw videos, there's tactical professionals everywhere, from Secret Service to police to tons of people there that, are in the realm of tactics like this. And that is just the most obvious position possible. And there's a lot that needs to happen for this kid to get from, I think it was his van they found, to a rooftop.
Right.
within 150 yards of the president on a building that was identified as a threat, that had a ladder. You know, like there's so many things. And I think I heard that the ladder was attached, but either way, when you go get ready at this property or venue before Donald Trump shows up, this is the first thing you look at, and it's the first thing you secure. So I can't wrap my head around it, or I can't even come to a conclusion that it's incompetence, because that level of incompetence, and it would have to be from every person, everyone on the ground, from the police walking around, to be like, how come no one's watching this building?
And of course, you've seen now the eyewitnesses who were shouting for minutes, letting the police know, and they're pointing. You hear President Trump speaking in the background. They're letting the police know that there is an individual climbing on that rooftop in an army crawl with a rifle. And are you guys going to do anything about it? What would have been happening behind the scenes, do you think? I mean, as you mentioned, as a sniper team protecting the Prime Minister of Canada and others, what would have been happening kind of behind the scenes on the comms channel as you're hearing from, you know, your supervisors, your superior officers and so forth, calling out information to you? What would you have been hearing?
Yeah, I think like for us between the sniper teams, you would just be communicating with the other teams, if there were other teams, who has eyes on that target. And like, you know, do you identify a rifle? Can you see this? Yes or no? Different positions would be calling in what they can see. And then it would, because I'm assuming this was a couple of agencies there. So it's Secret Service and police and everything. So the stuff on the ground, I can get to confusion and incompetence. Like I've seen comms be crazy when stuff gets heated, you know, communication breaks down. It's tough between interagencies and all of that stuff. So like, you know, the incompetence, once there were already shots fired, or once, you know, the guy was ready with the gun on the roof, I can buy that. Like I don't think every person there was just like letting this kid shoot at Donald Trump. My point is, for him to get on that roof with a rifle that close, I think someone helped there. And I'm not pointing my finger at a particular person or agency. I'm just saying someone on the inside of this thing helped or assisted or turned a blind eye or whatever somewhere, because to me that is impossible.
And to me, it's impossible as well. And I'm not an elite sniper, but for 3 minutes, we know that this sniper, the Secret Service sniper, at first it was thought it was other agencies. I think we've now confirmed it was Secret Service snipers on that roof aimed in that direction, that for 3 minutes they had him in their sights. What would have been happening on the comms in that situation? I mean, what would you have said? I have this individual in my sights. He's not one of us. He's got a rifle. It's aimed at the president. And for 3 minutes, I mean, what would have been happening in that moment?
Oh, well, I would have pulled the trigger. Like you have, and again, I can't speak to their ROEs, but I can imagine that they have an ROE that says an armed person on a rooftop looking at, you know, your principal, which is the former president of the United States. I can't imagine there's an ROE that says like you have to wait for him to shoot first.
Right.
So that I don't understand. Like he would have been shot. So I don't understand what they were talking about for 3 minutes. I don't see how. I could understand if you just see movement, like you can't just shoot at movement. But if there was a rifle identified, like you have to take that shot.
Well, that was going to be my next question. How powerful are the scopes you're using? I mean, initially reports were that it was about 488 yards away. We now know that it was about 150 yards away. You're using a high-powered scope on a rifle. Can you explain to me like what you would have seen? Would it have been crystal clear, or would it have been murky at a distance? As a sniper, 150 yards, is that at the edge of your... That's
I didn't see that's crystal clear. Any scope I've ever used. I didn't see the optics that they have, and there's things like hot days can have mirage and stuff like that, especially coming off of a roof, but not at 150 yards. You will see it if you're using 10 power, 30 power, 20 power, any sniper optic. Essentially, you're going to see it. Like that's almost where you zero your gun at. Like, it's crystal clear.
So 150 yards is like where you zero your gun.
You'd normally zero around 100, but you're just 50 yards past that. And with a good optic, it's a very clear picture. Yeah.
Wow. So I think a lot of people wondering if this individual had help to be there, and some others, of course, speculating that he would make the perfect patsy as a loner, so sort of an outcast, the perfect patsy to be used in this situation. It does absolutely seem strange for them to have this rule of engagement to allow this person to fire first, unload 8 rounds. Can you, before I let you go, Dallas, the 8 rounds moment here, I mean, this guy gets off 8 rounds. He also has a police officer confront him on the roof. And then the police officer backs off and retreats, and then he's able to fire. How is that? What about that makes sense to you? Any of it?
No, not at all. There's a bunch of things that happen that just don't add up. And this is why I have the opinion that I have. And it starts with just this young man being able to get to that position, why it wasn't covered, why, like, there's just so many things that don't add up. That's why I hold the opinion that I do.
Yeah. I still don't understand how he gets off 8 rounds, right? Even if they were waiting for him to fire once, how quickly can a sniper team respond to just 1 shot, let alone 8 shots?
It's like fractions of a second.
Yeah, this whole thing is absolutely fishy to me. Dallas, thank you for taking some time out. We really, really appreciate it. And I know you're out in huge crowds all the time, singing in front of thousands of people. And to see, I'll get you out of here on this question. We've been sort of making comparisons to people who are performing on stage. I mean, that's something you do on a regular basis. The security, it seems like at those events, just a Taylor Swift concert, and there's huge bodyguards around. I mean, it seems like you guys have more security on a regular basis than what the president had coming to his assistance. Did anything that stand out to you from that regard? You've been around these big concert venues, and it seems like there's all sorts of bodyguards and protection for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, some of them, not always for me, but I mean, that's just another fishy thing. I heard something about a request for more Secret Service and whether they got it or not. But I actually don't think the number of people there in this particular case really mattered that much. Like, that's not why I think it's fishy, even though maybe it played a part. But like, you could have 2 people securing that site, and that rooftop is going to be one of the things you focus on. Yeah, it's just so obvious to me that it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, no, I think you're great. I think you're right. Absolutely, that rooftop is the subject number 1 in all of this. Dallas, thank you so much for taking some time out to speak with us. I saw your video, and I said I want to talk to this man. Thank you so much, Dallas.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dallas. I know Dallas down there in Nashville performing right now. So thanks, Dallas, for taking some time out in between concerts and all of that. Really fascinating.
Yeah, and emotionally speaking, we know it was a miss of the president, but it was a hit of an innocent civilian, and that's the thing that we cannot forget is that an innocent man died. So even if there was some kind of conspiracy to let him take the first shot, and he missed, the wrong person was hit, then the shooter was aiming for, and we just, Trump today said that he'd be attending the funeral service of the innocent civilian that was killed, and that needs to haunt us all in perpetuity. And it absolutely does.
Who dives on to save his daughter's life, and to protect his daughter. Absolutely. That GoFundMe that the Trump campaign has set up now is, I think, in the millions for the victims. Which is unbelievable. So, that's it's a Trump campaign set up GoFundMe account to help the victims, which is unbelievable. I want to talk about some new pieces of evidence that are actually really compelling. So let's take a look. It's being called the Pac-Man perimeter. So let's take a look at this. The reason it's calling the Pac-Man perimeter is because that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like Pac-Man. How? Let's keep this up on the screen. How is the rooftop that Dallas Alexander was just talking about excluded from the Secret Service or state police security bubble that was set to be
It's literally the only thing you can climb in that radius.
Right, well,
we don't need
like
that.
he just pointed out, also you can see the water tower in in that image. Like that water tower is a pretty high vantage point where you could get a pretty good view too. Like, I mean, I'm no military sniper, but like he said, like Fortnite or just any first person shooter game, like that's where you would go.
I mean, I'd almost rather you flip the Pac-Man over so that the mouth of the Pac-Man is over the lake that's right there, the retention pond that's right there, where people in the water, right? You could flip it around and actually, let's make that a dead zone. Instead, there's a roof that's 150 yards away, and yes, a water tower that's right there. An unbelievable level of incompetence. You know, I asked this weekend, was it?
They go in weeks, sometimes even months ahead of time to look at these places, and your main objective is what all has a vantage point on the podium. And so they look at everywhere around that area, and I'm saying like weeks or sometimes months in advance to see all the vantage points. That is a perfect vantage point right to that podium.
Yes. In fact, we used to live in Florham Park, New Jersey, and there's an airport there where President Trump would fly into when he wanted to go into his Bedminster Club. And so we would get notices that the overpasses in that area would be closed during certain days when the presidential motorcade would be going through there. So we would know we would not be able to drive over the overpasses when the president would go under. And then the airport near our house would be closed on a regular basis as well when the president was there. So this is 101. This should not be, you can't get on an overpass. You can't get above the president, basically, duh.
Right. Yeah, I know there are some differences here on some of the lengths and distances. So I have heard from certain sources that the bullet distance was calculated at 488 yards distance. Okay. The shooter was 150 yards on this roof. So weird inconsistencies between the length of this 488 yards to 150 yards on this roof.
Wait, what do you mean? That the physics shows? My
sources are telling me that the Secret Service has calculated at least one of these shots to come from 488 yards. Now, he was on a rooftop of 150 yards.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things we don't know the answer to yet. And hopefully we'll get some clarity on this. Was that other shot fired from the water tower? Were there other shots fired beyond where this individual was located? Far beyond the water tower through the line of trees? We don't know. But again, that comes from sources on the Secret Service side. So again, we're pulling these pieces together here. But I will say this, if you watch any video over the past few days, to me, nothing is more compelling than the video you're about to see here, specifically focused on the roof location where this shooter was located, this Thomas Matthew Crooks individual on the rooftop. Now, watch this video. The reason this is so compelling is it's multiple angles combined as one video. Audio syncing between the president speaking on stage and the audio playing in the field and in the grounds where these individuals were located in the back of the fields here, near the rooftops. So this is really, really interesting. Again, listen to this video, listen to the syncing of these different spots here, combined as one video, and you can see the folks in the back of the crowd pointing to the rooftop and pointing that there's the shooter up on the rooftop while the president is speaking. So they're giving them multiple minutes. This is about 2 minutes long. Watch this video.
He was doing his job. I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with a gorgeous ocean.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there. See him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And still I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
there he
not
is.
easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. it's much tougher than if it happened.
You went right on the roof again.
Ever. In recorded history, we're the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much? You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring, I try and explain that. Oh, there's it. Wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit over that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that says, what happened.
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
We got breaking news. Coming in. Shots fired. Seems to be shots fired at the Trump rally. Is he okay? We need to go live right now. We are live right now at the Trump rally. We don't know if President Trump has been shot. We know he hit the ground. We do not know if President Trump has been shot. He's up. He's up. Shots are still continuing to be fired. He's giving a thumbs up, everybody. He's giving a thumbs up.
So, just an unbelievable video. I mean, you can see the 2 minutes that we knew about this person on the rooftop being warned by bystanders, having to tell state police, and then state police were unable to then communicate with Secret Service to let them know. How is this allowed to happen? And then after this, he's still on stage after shots are fired. Then the Secret Service is lifting him up, allowing his head to be exposed.
Right.
Once again, while you're hearing the reporter saying shots are still being fired.
Yes.
Shots are still being fired. It's just remarkable how this was allowed to happen in 2024. That he is with that 2 minute window. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the only video you need to watch,
right,
to understand it.
And again, I just can't not be haunted about the death we're actually seeing in real time of the innocent civilian. And you can see the people in that corner who are like, "Whoa, this guy's really hurting down." They don't cheer that President Trump got up. They are worried about the person who they are seeing dead on the floor. That's not to them a victory, right? And so somebody died and it was allowed to happen. And that's the thing that, you know, it was, yes, a near miss of the president, and it would have been a gruesome image for us all, but it still is gruesome for the person who died that I just can't get over.
Yeah. Did you see that little diagram that somebody put out that showed how had his head, that he turned his head at the right moment, like it was just slightly off? It would have been a completely different conversation we'd be having today.
Yeah.
But it's also, we should now point out, it's not just him turning his head, it's the 5 mile per hour wind that was blowing, which also aided this gunshot from missing its target. So 5 mile an hour wind was maybe the difference. Him turning his head in this 5 miles per hour wind was the difference from him saving his life. We've got a lot more angles of this to cover. Don't leave. Stick around here, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. We're covering this from all angles. We're going to talk about the DEI failures here in just a moment. Also, Ann Vandersteel is going to be joining us in a few minutes as well to talk about the communication breakdown between the outer perimeter and the inner perimeter. She's uncovered some unbelievable new evidence we're going to present to you here in just a moment. Ann's going to be joining us, and we're also going to talk about the media collapse. The mainstream left-wing corporate media has totally crapped the bed, and we're going to talk about that in just moments. But first, recently, Wall Street firms raised their year-end S&P 500 forecasts after the May 15th CPI data came out. So we could see a similar stock surge. Maybe, maybe not. Whether or not it actually happens, who knows? But having a reliable trading app as your tool is always a choice. And that is why I want to tell you about our friends over at Moomoo. They are today's sponsors. Moomoo offers some exciting bonuses for new users. They have a competitive 5.1% APY with a 3-month 3% APY booster for new U.S. accounts. They also can get 15 free stocks by depositing $1,000 and maintaining the balance for 60 days. Australians enjoy something similar as well. You get 6.8% P.A cash interest for 180 days. That's up to $3,353 for a cash balance of $100,000. Now, that's up to 10 free shares with eligible deposits as well, and maintaining that account balance for 30 days. So use my link down below to sign up and see more information about that. Get your new user reward from Moomoo when you start your investment journey with our sponsor Moomoo today. The link works for users in both regions, both the United States and Australia. Check out the link below for more information. All right, thanks to Moomoo for supporting our show. Thank you guys for subscribing and being a part of our great community here.
All right, well, we're going to bring a little levity into this by asking the question, does Taylor Swift have better bodyguards than Donald Trump? So take a look at this video that went viral over the weekend of Taylor Swift doing her, I don't know, whatever era this is. My daughter would be able to tell you what costume that is. But watch the dude in the backwards hat here scanning the audience. And then when she decides to prance to a different area of the stage, he pops right up. Look at that. And then she prances down the down the catwalk, and he goes too. So this, my friends, is what it looks like when you have vigilant security. And now this guy is new hero to all Swifties, including my 2 daughters. And now consider the more frantic response to the assassination attempt on President Trump's life. So what you're looking at here is several shorter females, right? Clearly tough gals. They took a job that they thought they can handle, but this is an interesting juxtaposition because why does a former president not have the biggest, baddest dudes around? Is it because the head of Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, has famously said that she wanted to, quote, attract diverse candidates. And in fact, in the video I'm about to show you, she said that she aimed to have diverse candidates with an aim of 30% female by the year 2030. Watch.
To expand hiring, they're aiming to have 30% women recruits by 2030 and even allowed YouTube influencer Michelle Carre to train with agents.
But I'm very conscious as I sit in this chair now, of making sure that we need to attract diverse candidates and ensure that we are developing and giving opportunities to everybody in our workforce, and particularly women.
That workforce will be pivotal for the 2024 campaign season, which for the first time includes a former president who already has lifetime protection. Agents were there when Donald Trump was arraigned in New York.
We were able to work out the details ahead of time of how that particular day was going to go, but we will always ensure the safety of all of our protectees that we have.
The service has a zero-fail mission, a mission officers are training to uphold, pretending this field is the most famous address in America.
Okay, that zero-fail record is tarnished now. They have a fail. Someone died on their watch. It was not their candidate, but it was someone around the candidate. Someone died. And so they don't have a zero fail anymore. And this is unacceptable. So why is diversity a priority for security? It should not be, full stop. Security should want the biggest, baddest dudes, whether you're a female or a male, I don't care. You could be, what is Brienne of Tarth, right?
Right.
She would be acceptable. That would be fine for you Game of Thrones fans.
She's 6'5".
I think that'd be okay, right?
Yeah.
So this is not gender-based. This is just who is the biggest and the baddest. Go ahead, David.
Do you remember when we showed that training of the ladies for the fire department, and they were all stuck on that thing going over that water? Like, I think we should broadcast their training. Yeah, we should broadcast their training just so people can see, what they're going through and what they're able to do.
Yes. Now consider the optics here. I mean, the optics are obvious. We've all watched it now, not just for those of us who want our diplomats and our leaders to be safe, but also to other countries. Earlier this year, when the president of Russia met with the president of China, this video went viral. These are their two bodyguards for respectively President Putin and President Xi Jinping. And look at the international standards that they have versus what we've got. So the guy on the left guides Putin. The guy on the right guides Xi Jinping. They had a conversation with a nod.
They're like, yep, we got him.
Now, the comments on this video are gold. I've watched it like 9 times. I mean, they look like they were lab grown. Absolutely. Like they have metal for breakfast. Shouldn't it be a priority that anybody who needs protection gets people like that? You think? Can we agree that diversity has nothing to do with it? Full stop. Over the weekend, I actually took some flack on Twitter because I said there was no reason to mock these women. We need to mock the people who put them in place. Now watch this one woman who's sort of fumbling around with her gun, looking a bit frantic. This obviously, now that you've seen the Russian bodyguard and the Chinese bodyguard, let's look again at her.
'Cause you had a bad day.
I'm sorry, but can we stop that? I'm sorry, I didn't notice we had the music. I'm sorry, I meant to mute that. So again, as one user put it, we should blame the owner, not the dog. We live in a society, obviously, that has told her that she can do it, that her best is enough. We live in a society where we tell boys they can be girls, girls can be boys. We tell obese people that they should be on fitness magazines. Obviously, the head of the Secret Service is actively recruiting people like this. Is it her fault that she accepted a job like this in this terrible economy? How do we know that she was not willing to risk her life for the president? So I'm not on board with blaming her personally. I am 100% on board with blaming the system, except that this image that also went viral this weekend shows that she is not in the dog pile that she is supposed to be in. So we don't know the full context of what her job would have been. It seems to be that all of the men are in the dog pile and the women are not. Maybe that's what it was supposed to be. We're gonna get answers. But these are appropriate questions, and we should all agree that this is not the standard. So what I won't do is assign the entire blame to this person. This is a human response. It was flawed across the board. I welcome your comments on this. But I think that we should agree on is that the standard should be much, much higher. So what are the standards? Well, if you go to the Secret Service website, you can see that there is absolutely no requirement for a Secret Service agent for height, weight, or body fat percentage. Instead, the physical test that they take is called APAP, which is Applicant Physical Abilities Test. And it's points based. So they are scored. They have to get a minimum of a 20 score, and they're scored on these categories. If we look at the next slide, whether they can do push-ups, at least 14, sit-ups, at least 20. This agility run means how fast can they change direction, and this 1.5 mile run. So they have to complete 1.5 mile run in less than 20 minutes. That's not that fast. I would wager the Russian and the Chinese bodyguard can do this a heck of a lot faster. And again, if you look at the criteria for that 1.5 mile run, they have to finish it in 19.41, but they can walk or stop. You guys.
Walk or stop.
So you have to do 1.5 miles, but not continuously. And you can walk it or you can stop. So that's not the job.
Are you also allowed to use a hover round?
Like, is the bad guy going to stop if you're chasing the bad guy?
Yeah, like slow down.
You just flash the universal timeout symbol, and then everybody has to chill out for a good 5 minutes. Yep, just time out, and then yeah.
I mean, this is embarrassing. I don't know if any of you like to do Orange Theory. It's basically HIIT training. An Orange Theory class is much harder than these 4 things. You do way more than 14 push-ups in a class, 22 sit-ups.
Bernadette in our chat says, I'm disabled, and I would pass that criteria.
I mean, I'd take any of the people who went to Orange Theory with me this weekend because they could do more than this in easily. This is not an ad for Orange Theory, but if you'd like to join me, let me know because I like partners. So again, Cheadle released. So yeah, this is not a real, they don't, in many American schools no longer do physical fitness tests. And this is a baseline, what kids do. So these standards are no standards at all.
Sammy J in our chat says, in our Rumble chat says, in 1989, the U.S. Air Force had 11 minutes for a 1.5 mile run.
Okay.
In 1989. Times have changed.
Right. And so people could clearly do that.
Getter to go, GTR to go, and in our Rumble chat says, I run 2 miles in 14 minutes. I'm 62 years old today. These standards are way too low. Yes, they are.
Clearly.
Yes.
Okay. My time right now is about a 9-minute mile. So
I can walk. Anthony Goodley says I can walk a mile in about 15 minutes. I can walk a mile in about 11 minutes.
Yeah.
12 minutes with the dog. Routinely, every morning I do that.
Yes. Without stopping or walk. I mean, there should be no walking.
No.
Because the bad guys don't walk. That's not the job. Who are we aiming for here? Now, Cheadle released this statement over the weekend about the Trump assassination attempt and the RNC. She says she's confident that they've got a better plan now. It's okay now, she says. We're flexible. In light of the shooting, we've strengthened our security.
Oh, yeah.
She says that the security plans are designed to be flexible. Okay. As the convention progresses and in accordance with the direction of the president, we will continuously adapt our operations as necessary to ensure the highest level of safety and security for the president. In addition, she says there are security enhancements now. Okay. She says, it's a big responsibility. I take that seriously. So those enhancements, I want to see them now. I want to see the biggest mofos you got. Don't you? We got to see this now. We got to see this for all candidates. We should want this across the board. Now, this statement clearly will not be enough because President Biden has ordered an investigation into the security around President Trump. He also canceled his plans to go to Texas today to deliver remarks on the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. And Vice President Kamala Harris has postponed a planned trip to Florida over the weekend, too. The House Oversight Committee announced that it will open an investigation into the shooting as well. And they have invited, lightly using that word, because if she doesn't show, they will subpoena Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle to testify at the hearing as well on the 22nd. Now, it's worth remembering that Democrats tried to strip President Trump of his Secret Service detail in April. They introduced a bill called, it's an acronym for disgraced. It's denying infinite security and government resources allocated towards convicted and extremely dishonorable, that's disgraced if you were to write it all out, former Protectees Act. It was introduced by Mississippi Democrat Representative Bernie G. Thompson, but it was only introduced to committee. No one has yet voted on it. I don't think even the lowest of the low congressional representatives would vote for it now, but we'll see if it moves forward. So let me know what you think of these so-called standards. Are we sending our best for our leaders and representatives, or is this proof that, I want someone's resignation over this. I want several resignations over this.
Do you think that Alejandro Mayorkas, who is in charge of Cheadle, is going to fire her? Of course not. And of course, President Biden is totally out to lunch. He doesn't even know where his shoes are, and he's not going to fire her. He probably, as Dan Bongino pointed out, doesn't even know who she is.
Right.
Clearly, he doesn't even know who she is. He doesn't know who's alive and who's dead. So no one's going to be fired over this. This is the great secret of the federal government. No one ever loses their job. So the worse you do, the more harm you wrought,
right?
The greater the promotions you get,
sure.
Like Victoria Nuland.
But okay, let's fantasize. What would be an appropriate response right now is resignation of the head of Secret Service, some kind of punishment for the people who did not act, when they were warned about the bullet. Several people probably. A real investigation, not by... The problem is the investigation we're getting now is by the FBI,
right,
that appointed a special counsel to investigate Donald Trump, which was now ruled unconstitutional. So is the FBI the governing body we want from this? I don't know who we would turn to at this point for an investigation. Sherlock Holmes? Like, there's literally no body that we should trust. Congress will hold hearings, but that's all they can do. They can recommend to the Justice Department, and the Justice Department tells them to pound sand.
Right.
We got nothing. We have nothing. But again, if we're fantasizing about what should happen, resignations and this standards page I showed you should be put in the fire, and we should get real standards from... let's consult China on this. Clearly, they've got some bad dudes. Let's see what they do to put people through the paces.
Yeah, let's see what Russia does to put people through the paces. No more 15-minute, was it 20-minute mile?
20-minute mile and a half, please.
So
my 7-year-old could do that.
You could literally be running and eating donuts at the same time. That appears to be what some of these
literally, if we think
doing.
about putting our 7-year-old Eve against one of them, like pretend Eve's the bad guy, she's going to catch him. She's going to catch someone doing a 19-minute 1.5 mile.
I just think about President Trump standing next to me, right? I'm like, he would tower over me, right?
Yeah.
I shake his hand. He's 6'3". I'm 6'2".
Yeah.
You know, here's a guy who's massive man.
Right.
So you're going to assign a 5'4" individual to guard him?
Well, okay, I'm 5'3". We can't stand up, right? Because the cameras won't see us.
No, the cameras will cut us off, yeah.
So Clayton and I'm 5'2". Did I just say I was 5'3"? I lied right to your face.
You just lied. We need to put you in front of a congressional hearing.
I want to pretend. I'm 5'2" and Clayton's 6'2", so we're a full foot apart. And yeah, I can't cover him. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No, if someone wants to take me out, they're going to take me out, and that extra foot is not going to protect me at all.
It's your whole head.
Yeah,
So that needs to be the job.
Unless you are like carrying a stack of books on your head or something like that.
Or wearing some really good stilettos, but I don't have anything like that.
So, all right, let us know your thoughts on that. Yeah, but it's amazing because Donald Trump would tower. I mean, I was like, whoa, he's a hulking man when he'd walk across the studio at Fox News and shake his hand. He's like, man, he's a big guy.
But that's only 1 inch. But still, I should not be in charge of, I think I'm a pretty strong lady, but...
You are strongly.
I mean, I just told you I do Orange Theory, so be impressed.
Reality says, Clayton, I and my brothers love you guys. Love Redacted. Thank you guys from New York City. Good to see all of you guys. Someone else, I love this comment a few minutes ago, said, Redacted is compromised. I'm like, oh yeah, please, when you make up a bullshit statement like that, please be specific. And then I ask you, can you please explain? And they disappear. So
well, I did just lie about my height.
Yeah, I guess you're compromised.
Yeah.
Hey, we are supported by you guys. We don't take money from Big Pharma, where we don't have billionaires backing us. We have a few sponsors here on our show, but we are otherwise supported by you guys. So thank you guys for subscribing for free. It's free to subscribe here to the channel on YouTube, on Rumble. We stream live on X as well. So thank you guys for your support. We are independent, and we thank you for your support here on the show. We've got more news to get to here on your program. We are going to talk about the communication breakdown. Ann Vandersteel is going to be joining us. She's got a lot of new evidence as to how this communication collapsed between the state police, the Secret Service, the outer perimeter, the inner perimeter. We're going to speak to Ann in just a second. But we are supported by our friends over at 1775 Coffee. And today, I just ordered some new 1775 coffee because I can't stand crappy coffee. And so we just ordered some. You get 10% off right now if you go to 1775coffee.com/redacted, right?
That's right. Because if you too do not like weak coffee, then you should get your coffee from 1775 Coffee, because not only is it strong and high quality, but also it's a coffee that embodies the revolutionary spirit. 1775 Coffee's farm to cup journey ensures the highest quality, authenticity, and sustainability from start to finish. So with each sip, your palate will recognize, appreciate the dedication and passion that goes into crafting this single sourced brew. Because if you're like me, I actually go to sleep at night excited about my cup of coffee in the morning. Do you do that too?
Oh, I do.
I think about it at night like, it's going to be a great day. That's going to be a comforting thing. So join us in trying out 1775 Coffee by going to 1775coffee.com/redacted. Use the code redacted and get 10% off. That's 1775coffee.com/redacted.
There were incredible police inconsistencies during the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Did those inconsistencies contribute to the assassination attempt on President Trump's life? Information war correspondent, host of Steel News, and friend of the show, journalist Ann Vandersteel, has uncovered some remarkable new details and new information and joins us now this morning as she's been digging through all of these pieces of information as they're coming in fast and furiously. Ann, thanks for taking a few moments out to talk with us today.
Great to be with you, Clayton. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let's talk about some of the new information that you've uncovered about what went on in Butler, Pennsylvania. Can you just walk us through how you discovered some of these inconsistencies from the police and the agencies that were there that day?
Sure. There's a couple of things we really need to examine closely, and this comes from a source inside the Pennsylvania State Police Department who is concerned and has questions, and these are questions that need to be raised extensively within the Secret Service and within all the agencies that were present for law enforcement that day. But most concerningly is with the Secret Service running point on the Trump rally that day. Why was it staffed in the fashion that it was? First off, the Pennsylvania State Police, which has been a party to many presidential escorts, was woefully understaffed, specifically when it comes to their elite squad, the Strategic Emergency Response Team, or the CERT team. That is their elite squad. And there was only 4 members of the CERT team requested in attendance that day. And they were delegated out to the motorcade as opposed to being on the inner perimeter with the Secret Service. So why was that such a sparse request? Number 2, the bomb squad was denied participation. There was no request, even though it was made available. Again, they are always available on these sorts of gatherings. When you have a president, former or current president, you always have a bomb squad available. So these are 2 big glaring questions that need to be answered. The CERT team normally works with Secret Service very, very closely, hand in hand. In fact, I mean, they're looking at the rooftops, they're looking at areas for breaches of security, they're looking at any possible breach point, frankly, and they will recommend and put snipers on multiple breach points or points of access or a place where they feel that anybody might gain access that shouldn't gain access. So you have to ask yourself, why wasn't that engaged for that particular day? We all saw that it took, 3 minutes 42 seconds before any return fire was offered. It has also been stated by Dan Bongino that the protocol that day was do not fire unless fired upon. Now, in any given circumstances in the past, the CERT team, if they see somebody within a presidential motorcade or in a presidential gathering, if you see somebody with a long arm, they're going to take the shot. There's going to be shoot and ask questions later. That was a stand down. So there's major questions around that. But I think probably one of the most alarming things, in addition to all of that, was the lack of communications, interagency communications. And I can explain if you're interested.
Yeah, please do explain. I mean, and you bring up a great point here about this, the return fire. I just spoke to a special operations sniper who was in charge of, who was, spent 17 years as an elite sniper, but part of a group that would protect presidents, prime ministers. There's absolutely no way they wouldn't have returned fire. In fact, they would have fired first. So this is a glaring problem in this story.
Correct. You really didn't see anybody besides Secret Service around. And again, we could talk about the JV squad that was around the president that day, as evidenced by the videos. I mean, again, the DEI hires, and I am not a feminist. I'm not anti-woman. I'm not pro-woman. I'm pro the best person for the job in any given circumstance, whatever creed, color, religion you are. I don't care. But you always want the best person, especially around a presidential candidate and former president, in a situation where the hostility and the rhetoric towards President Trump by the establishment, and I don't just mean the left, I mean the establishment, including rhinos, is at an all-time deafening high, almost like a deep state death rattle, as they know they're losing in the court of public opinion, clearly. But interagency communication is critical. Now imagine playing telephone, Clayton, right? If you have a string of people and somebody starts a message and passes it in the ear to the next person and so on and so forth. That is ostensibly what was happening that day during the Trump rally. Typically, you have a local county controller who assigns a channel on your radios for your state, your federal, and your local agencies that are present. When the federal government is involved, specifically the Secret Service, they have their own channel. So while the local, state, and federal agencies may share and coalesce around a channel, the feds are always on their separate channel. So that is, of course, problematic in of itself. But typically you have somebody in the middle that's relaying information so that in real time, they're sharing information as quickly as possible. Something happened that day because you could see the mass confusion, particularly when they were trying to get the president off. Again, you had a JV squad of Secret Service agents who couldn't even holster their gun properly in a timely fashion. They looked like it was sort of who's on first, Abbott and Costello routine, just trying to get the president into the car, save a couple of Secret Service agents that I've seen in detail around President Trump for a long time. But again, the interagency communication appeared not to have been there. And if it was there, it wasn't functioning properly. So when setting up interagency communications, according to my source, radio should be handed out. And frankly, the question is, why not standardize on a standard radio channel for everybody? The Secret Service can have their own private comms, but there should be radios issued to everybody so that at least they can communicate collaboratively all across the same channel so as to expedite information as well as a response should something like what we witnessed happen ever occur in the future. So, again, we have to ask, I think Freedom of Information Act requests need to go out to all law enforcement agencies involved, to the Secret Service, to DHS, for which Alejandro Mayorkas is over DHS, which is over Secret Service. And Clayton, you and I've spoken about Operation Burning Edge and the work that's been going on as we've evaluated the people transiting our southern border, the illegal invasion happening, and all of the state sponsors of terror that are sending military-age men across the border. It is no surprise that Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, HIAS, has been under the microscope, so much so by Operation Burning Edge. They've locked their Twitter account. They removed signs down in the Panamanian-Darien Gap. But they're also integral in this invasion process and expediting the mass weaponized human migration. Alejandro Mayorkas is a former board member of HIAS just before taking on the position of the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. And to cap all of this, most recently, the election of President Jose Raul Mulino, the new president of Panama, summoned a delegation from the United States government, and Joe Biden sent Alejandro Mayorkas. And in that meeting, I'm told by Oscar Ramirez, one of our Operation Burning Edge correspondents, who also works for Real America's Voice and Epoch Times, he learned definitively that Mulino said to Mayorkas, "You will provide us finances and planes to repatriate these illegals. You will help facilitate the closure of the Darien Gap. And if you don't, we will restrict access to the Panama Canal for the United States." Very problematic.
You also just broke some news just a few minutes ago about the continuity of government and why the Biden administration, they come out, President Biden makes this recorded statement, says we need to unite as a country, no place for violence. We need to come together and settle these things at the battle box. Which is strange to me. It was a recorded message, and yet they still couldn't get it right, not at the ballot box. But this continuity of government piece that dropped just a short time ago, the Biden administration appears to be going into a war footing right now. The deep state appears to, now that they couldn't take out President Trump, now we have this case dismissed, of course, against Jack Smith as unconstitutional, the documents case against President Trump. You believe that they are heading into a war footing. Can you explain that?
Well, I came to that my assessment myself, and I actually sent this in a text to a well-respected general who I won't put on blast, but he concurred that this is a declaration of war by his reading of this memo. And, when you consider where we are going, we just did a broadcast yesterday with Lara Logan and Alex Jones. It was about a 2.5-hour broadcast, along with some other very influential podcasters. And we talked about this and broke it down. And Alex Jones was very clear. He said, "Ann, this is where they're going. They missed their attempt at assassinating President Trump. We can look at, like you just said, all the Supreme Court cases, including the Fisher case, the immunity case, the Chevron doctrine, which is really going to be dismantling the deep state en masse, and the administrative state, I should say. you can look at all that and running up to today, the losses are piling up for them right now. And, if you look at the international banking cabal that's behind all of this war posturing and, of course, nation building after we destroy countries, we are at war with BRICS nations, not because the Americans choose to be, but because the international banking cabal controlling our government chooses to be. So again, this is nothing more than continuity of government as orchestrated by an unelected group of bureaucrats that are going to consolidate power under agency, which, of course, by our own Constitution, Clayton, is illegal and unconstitutional, unlawful. We cannot have agency government. We must have a government of, by, and for the people we elected and choose to govern us based on what we, the people, want. So we are going into a position that if the American people tacitly agree to this memorandum and just go along to get along because they don't understand what's happening, well, we're giving away our authority to a bunch of war criminals. And that's exactly who is running our country right now.
Given that, do you think that this shooter acted alone, that this was a lone wolf?
No.
Or as Laura Logan points out, it takes quite a village to create a lone wolf, doesn't it?
It does take quite a village. I mean, we can go back in history and look at the lone wolf shooters, right? Of course, the JFK assassination comes to mind, but we now know that was a CIA operation. So again, this reeks of another CIA operation. CIA perfected the color revolution occasionally outside our United States. We've gone into color revolutions and replaced power regimes left and right, Ukraine being the most recent. Fortunately, they're losing that game. We see the election of Javier Milei in Argentina, a libertarian in a socialist country, Bukele in El Salvador, and of course, the new Costa Rican president, the president of Panama. These are people that are now rejecting tyranny, and it's because the people are standing up. It's always been the people's power. God has always given us discernment to make those choices. But what we, as Americans, we've been allowed to live a life of luxury for a long time, thanks to the central bankers and the hegemony of the US dollar. That is fading very quickly into the proverbial sunset. And the sooner that Americans realize that we're going into an economic collapse, that is when I finally believe we will see the spirit of the American rise again. And I don't mean the word revolution as in calls to arms. I mean, we are going to reject tyranny like we did 250 years ago. But this time we can do it peacefully because information is power. And as quickly as you can put these broadcasts out, Clayton, that's the speed of which we can educate America and come together and position ourselves to restore the republic. And I do believe that is where we're headed, but it's going to be a very ugly restoration process. And again, the ugliness in the making will all be from the left and the rhino establishment because they are losing power and losing power quickly. So I'm actually looking forward to the transition to myself.
I as well, and you and I are, of course, big investors in gold and silver and precious metals, and gold prices bouncing back this morning. I think there's an awareness about what's happening with the U.S. dollar. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. I'll get you out of here on this, Ann, which is what questions do you still have about this shooter and what unfolded in Butler, Pennsylvania? What answers do you hope we get over the next few days? Now, the FBI, Christopher Wray, says we got this. We're in charge. We're going to get to the bottom of this investigation. But what answers stand out to you most glaringly right now that you need?
Well, as you always know, when we're talking about something over here, it's because they don't want us looking over there. So while we sit here and machinate over the fact that we can be rest assured there is more than one shooter involved, who that is specifically, I don't know. But I believe without a shadow of a doubt, our deep state government is involved. There may be foreign actors that are involved as well. It could be, it could be bad actors coming out of Iran who are collaborating with our bad actors out of the CIA. I don't know for sure. That all will eventually come to the surface. But while we are studying all of that, we have to pay attention to what's happening economically in our amidst immediately, because they're going to continue the destabilization on our country. We're going to see the destabilization of civil unrest in our cities. And again, I want to remind you of just something. You brought up gold very quickly. We're about to go over $35 trillion in debt. The interest payment alone is $800 million, which is greater than our defense budget. So you can see they're positioning America right now as a very weakened, downed eagle with a broken wing. And I think the American people are going to be the ones to set that splint and get our eagle flying again. But in the meantime, we can be fascinated with how many shooters. But at the end of the day, it's not going to stop what is happening to our country. Only the people can stop it. So I say we should get to the bottom of it, to again get one more piece of accountability and evidence to hold these sick, evil perpetrators to account, and we will do that. But in the meantime, we have to be prepared for what's coming so that we can brace for that impact and suffer as few casualties as possible under the circumstances that are literally coming at us like a train off the rails.
Well said. Ann Vandersteel is the host of Steel News, an excellent journalist. Thank you for everything that you've been doing to get this information out, and continued great work. We really appreciate it, Ann. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thanks, Clayton, to you and Natalie as well.
Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it.
Oh, she brought it.
She did. She always brings it. Ann is a great reporter, and she works tirelessly. So, I think that the type of people, the type of journalists like Ann who are out there on the front lines, reporting on this, doing the work, getting their hands dirty, who don't work for large media organizations and who aren't taking money from big corporate media.
Yeah, and can see the bigger picture of it. Does very much feel to me like a wind deflating from a globalist agenda across the board. We see the courts, in my opinion, getting it right. We see, these the wind out of the sails of the things that we don't want as Americans.
What do you guys think about what she said about this transition? Because someone in the chat says, what kind of transition are we talking about here, Ann? Tranning Vam says, what transition is that? I mean, is it a transition away from this massive bureaucracy? I mean, $34 trillion in debt right now. Destroying the deep state, this transition, rising up, saying we're going to take our country back.
A great awakening. I mean, going into the weekend, the shows we did last week about the NATO agenda really kept me up at night. We are all nuclear powers now. We see us as the good guys, but really it's clear to me that they are not. And this is where your tax money is going. And this is what your leaders are going to put their energy into. And what she is saying is, we actually see you. We don't want this. Think about this. The average American works from January till May to pay their taxes only. That's it. We don't keep that money. We work from January till May. And then what we work from June on is what we actually take home and use to feed our families. So I think the average American is seeing, I'm working from January to May to kill people abroad. I don't want that. So that's how I see it.
So earlier in the show, we reported at the top of the show, we are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully you guys will subscribe and be here on a regular basis with us. At the top of the show, I reported that yes, J.D. Vance would be vice presidential pick for President Trump. We now have confirmation of that. That has been confirmed. So we can say that yes. Okay, 100% that is the case. Tucker Carlson just moments ago saying the negative reaction by many to J.D. Vance is powerful. Look at who he's aligned against, which is the swamp. There's going to hear criticism of his support for Israel. You're going to hear support that he's taken money from Peter Thiel, all of those things. So we don't have any agenda here. We're just going to tell you what the guy's the past. He was a never Trumper before. He has evolved. He's now very, very much pro-Trump. That's been his evolution. Those are facts. And he had deleted a whole series of tweets where he was critical of President Trump back in the day. CNN did a whole expose about it a couple of years ago. He then apologized for those things. But he's evolved, and human beings evolve. So that's who the pick is for Vice President of the United States right now under President Trump is J.D. Vance.
And in the hour since that news broke, I just want to report that my local library is all out of his book. I went to take a look at every copy on
Hillbilly Elegy,
the audiobook, the ebook, the large print book, the downloadable book. Yeah, they're all out. So do your reading.
That book became a huge seller, of course, a few years ago when it came out. So yeah, I guess people can pick it up. Anyway, we got more news to get to here on your Monday, if you can believe that. Holy smokes, lots of moving pieces right now as we try to get answers about, on this shooter situation. Was he a lone wolf? Was he acting in concert with other individuals? Gross incompetence by the Secret Service? Was this planned? Was this a part of a larger event that was meant to, I really get bothered because people are like, Clayton, you guys are falling for the fact that this was a staged event. Are you out of your freaking mind? Like, what kind of a troll do you have to be to believe that this was a staged event? Are you out of your mind where innocent civilians get shot and killed? So people are saying, yeah, it was a BB gun. Okay. You really need to check yourself in. Please get some help. Please get some help if you think that this was a staged event, the assassination attempt on President Trump's life. Then you have Jack Black on stage, Tenacious D, saying that he's sad that, Tenacious D saying that they're sad that they missed the
There's
shot.
a lot of people like that who
Calls to boycott Jack Black today. There's a lot of things. Anyway, we've got more news to get to here on your Monday, and we are going to look at the media silence in just a moment.
And I just wonder, again, the people who questioned the Paul Pelosi attack, right, are the same sort of political bent, the people questioning the authenticity of this shooting. So, you know, we have this juxtaposition here of how people behave. So anyhow.
Yeah, we've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about this media silence in just a moment. But first, I know we talk a lot about gold. Ann and I were just talking about gold here on the show, but silver right now, also a fantastic investment. It doesn't get the news coverage. It doesn't get certainly the pomp and circumstance that gold does, being more expensive. But many financial experts believe silver is the best kept secret in investing right now. It's an industrial metal, of course. It's in everything from cell phones to batteries to electronics, solar, electric cars, the medical industry, AI, of course, all the new buzz around consuming silver right now. They need silver to power a lot of these different server farms and so forth. So back in 2020, silver was in a surplus. Solar was a just tiny source of demand. AI was non-existent. Now silver is in a deficit. Solar is huge. AI is taking over the world. In the words of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, and friend of the show, quote, everyone can afford to own some silver because it's so cheap. And I agree with Robert. So my friends over at Lear Capital can help you get set up investing. They are big supporters of our show here. They are American patriots. They are an American company. So when you call their 800 number, you're going to speak to Americans. It's not going to be some call center in India. Yeah, tell them Clayton sent you. Tell them the folks over at Redacted sent you. When you get on the phone with these guys, get their free silver deficit report right now. Just call them. You're under no obligation. Talk to them. Hey, I have a bit of US dollars in savings, which is declining in value because of inflation under Biden. Can I transition some of that into precious metals as wealth preservation? Like if you've got $1,000 in savings or 10,000, whatever you want to do, transitioning that over to precious metals, in my opinion, is what we've done. It's a very, very smart play because the U.S. dollar continues to lose value every day. Every day you have a U.S. dollar in savings, it loses value thanks to inflation. Just look at the cost of a Big Mac right now. That's your dollar indicator right there. Anyway, our friends at Lear Capital, American company, fantastic folks. Call their 800 number, 1-800-613-3557 to get your free silver guide right now, your free silver deficit guide, so you can see what is happening, silver shortage report, and they'll talk to you all about it. Go to 1-800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com.
Well, the media could be teaching us what it means to turn down the partisan rhetoric in this country, but instead they're doing the classic, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Instead of, again, showing their viewers what real journalism is or what it means to be the bigger person and show empathy for the opposition, MSNBC's Morning Joe instead decided not to broadcast at all today. Now, this is crazy. Clayton and I were both in corporate media. Clayton was a host at Fox and Friends, and I was with MSNBC before. Normally, when a big story breaks like this, they either pull...
all hands on deck.
It's all hands on deck. A lot of times, they would say, okay, the weekday anchors are going to come in over the weekend because this is too big of a show. They get their biggest personalities in. They don't just say... sitting this one out, can't do it. Here is the excuse they gave.
Well, it hasn't even been 48 hours since the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, but it's sending the media into a frenzy. This morning, Morning Joe, MSNBC's flagship political morning show, is off the air amid reported concerns over what guests might say.
They don't trust them.
Bonkers. Also, there are reports that they don't trust themselves, or maybe they just think, look, we take the piss out of this guy every day. We cannot pretend that we are sad about an attempt on his life. So we don't trust ourselves to be that good of actors. We certainly are not journalists. This is not the news. This is our own agenda. We got to sit it out. That's Wild. And then in the wake of that news, The Daily Show also canceled their planned coverage of the Republican National Convention. They won't go to the convention at all as they had planned, but instead they'll be broadcasting from their studio. Here's how they spun it. They said instead they'll go to their New York City studio. I'll apologize for the inconvenience, but they're saying due to logistical issues and the evolving situation in Milwaukee. Like, okay, logistical issues are clearly not a problem. It's the evolving situation.
Oh, I see. So now the usual easy mocking of President Trump is not so easy anymore. That situation has now evolved. That situation, because now the crazy leftists, the Antifa crazies who tried to assassinate a president of the United States, that situation has now evolved.
Right.
And we can't go to Milwaukee to do our normal like fake comedy routine where we go around.
Yeah.
Here's what they're going to do. Here's what The Daily Show would have done. They would have walked around on the floor talking to delegates in crazy hats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, delegates love to bring their big hats with balloons and all of that stuff.
Sure.
You know, they're there.
Beads.
And they go around with their microphone and they try to get gotcha questions, trying to make them look stupid.
Yes.
So that's all The Daily Show was going to do, is just go up to someone and be like, why do you love President Trump so much?
Right. What's a democracy?
How do you feel about Stormy Daniels? You know, that's the kind of stuff they would have done for the.
Yes.
They can't do it anymore.
I wonder if this has to do with that $30 million lawsuit against Maddow and MSNBC that's moving forward, where they're actually going to have some accountability for the things they've said. I wonder if they're like, if that's moving forward, then maybe we should be a little bit more careful of the rhetoric we're putting out.
That's a great point.
It could be that.
Yeah.
But
MSNBC doesn't have the deep pockets we thought they did. Also, no one's watching Morning Joe to begin with. I mean, this is a joke anyway.
Yes. The comments on the MSNBC post on the Morning Joe Twitter account saying we're going to be off the air tomorrow and we'll be back on Tuesday are pretty fun. There was one that I especially enjoyed saying, you know, Donald Trump survives and you're off the air. The world is a little bit of a better place. That did give me a chuckle. But it's clear that especially The Daily Show, but also Morning Joe, they only have one way to cover Donald Trump, which is as a cartoon. Now, an internal memo from a San Diego Fox station was released in the last few hours. A news director sent this to DC Drano, the YouTuber. And this, again, is an internal memo from a news organization telling the stations exactly how to cover the developing story of the shooting at the Trump rally. They're saying, hello, just a reminder, stick to the facts. Don't speculate, editorialize, sensationalize, or jump to conclusions. Don't call it an assassination attempt unless authorities say that it is. Don't say a shooting targeted Trump or the rally unless authorities confirm that. Clarify if it's actual gunshots, because that's unclear. If authorities don't know, it's okay to say that. Anchors, this one really gets me. Reminder to be mindful of your body language. You don't have to be serious or add comments or adjectives for color. So we don't have to take this seriously. Your body language. So, you know, poke fun if you want. Jovial if you want.
Don't use anchor serious face.
Right.
Like we went live right at moments after the shooting happened. JJ Carroll was in our studio, former Customs and Border Protection agent, and his father was a Secret Service, longtime Secret Service agent. And we were shocked and devastated. And it showed in our faces. Like, you're telling me that I can't show concern
and scared,
obviously. What's happening to my country?
Let's look again at this memo. It says you don't have to say that this is scary moments. Can we put it back on the screen? The third to last one. No need to say scary moments. So don't scare people, even though it's scary. Don't say so. And again, at the bottom, this is just a reminder. I know we all know. Do we all know? What is it that we all know? Not to be serious or upset about an assassination attempt on a president? I suspect we're going to see many internal communications memos like this from not just local affiliates, but also mainstream media networks. But why are they so hesitant to offer this humanity or real news coverage to Donald Trump? Now, I came across this week and I was reading this hours before the assassination attempt, and I felt like I should share it with you. This is a great book, also one that I got at my local library, called Bad News, about how Trump is catnip for the press, but specifically they have to cover him in a specific way or else he's not. Take a look at this, because I didn't know this. CBS's executive chairman Les Moonves famously said that Trump may not be good for America, but is damn good for CBS. And in fact, Ben Smith reported that in 2016, the head of NBC warned colleagues that MSNBC would take a 30% hit if Hillary Clinton was elected. So they knew that they avoided that because Trump was elected. So they're like, good, our ratings stay high. Now, leaked tapes from the president of CNN showed that the network encouraged Trump to run and even offered him tips on how to win a CNN-sponsored debate. What these recordings reveal is that CNN's cartoonish role as a determined and vituperative fake news media foil to Trump, while perhaps real for some of the reporters and broadcasters involved, is at least to some degree kabuki theater for executives. And Matt Taibbi wrote that even as president, Trump to network leaders is first and foremost a commodity, and an extraordinarily valuable one at that. So he is their cash cow. But if they can't take the piss out of them, they don't know what to do. And in case you are wondering, well, he's the candidate. You know, you always are going to cover the candidate. That's kind of news coverage. Well, the data shows quite clearly that he is something that they ride upon. So take a look at this. In 2017, Trump was mentioned the equivalent of once every 250 words. That's 2 or 3 times per article. This average encompasses all articles, including sports, style, food, and travel. It suggests little is published without at least some reference to Trump. He is the lens through which all stories are filtered. Trump was the 4th most used word in the entire New York Times in 2017. In 2018, the Times published the word Trump over 93,000 times. When you compare that to Barack Obama's candidacy in 2009, he only was mentioned in the Times 47,000 times, Clinton 34,000 times. So they can't cover this in an unbiased way because 93,000 times they've already told you what they think of this guy. They cannot then turn around and see him as a person, as a husband, as a grandfather, as a father, as they just cannot. They won't even try. It's beyond transparent. And this was made even more apparent with these denialist headlines over the weekend in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. You probably saw these, but it's shocking to see them all in one place. That he fell, that it was a loud noise, that the Secret Service, the one in the top left about CNN, Trump's speech interrupted by Secret Service. Okay. Trump rushed off stage after disruption. Now, this makes even more sense after the memo we just showed you. And even I got this one because I subscribed to the Telegraph's email newsletter. And it says just shooting in quotes. Like, what, we can't call it a shooting. We're not sure. You don't know what a gun is. You don't know what a shot is. This is just, again, it makes sense when they say don't call it a shooting until authorities do, because we don't want to go down that rabbit hole only to pull it back because we are incapable of human emotions. So again, the fact that they won't even try to present themselves as neutral or show empathy for a man who was shot at or another man who was shot and killed, this is unforgivable. And again, yesterday, President Biden asked the nation to lower the temperature of partisan politics. The media could have shown us how to do this, but instead they are showing that they cannot. And some of the headlines I saw around Twitter and X and such is, you cannot hate them enough. Every day I do, I hate them more. So I'm trying, but let me know how you feel about this, because this is the journalism that I studied in school, and they get an F minus. They get a negative 100%. Let me know how we can hate them more, and we'll do it together.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people there's a lot of questions still surrounding all of this. A lot of people asking our opinion on the BlackRock video that Laura Loomer broke that story yesterday. The BlackRock video, it was like a promotional video for schools, and they used Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, in the school in the BlackRock video, and you can see the shooter Thomas Crooks in the video. BlackRock has since taken that video down. There's nothing further. BlackRock didn't issue a statement on that as to how he was in this ad, but he's just like an extra in the classroom as they're filming the teachers and stuff. It just is a quick pass. I don't know. It's amazing how someone found that. Yeah. Was able to like scan that and find that that's him. That was Thomas Crooks in the video, and BlackRock took it down, again, not issuing a statement on that. Other people pointing out, yes, there is a uniparty. So we should all remember there are 100 million Americans who think that both parties are criminal. You know, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And almost every Republican, as Thomas Massey reminds us, takes money from AIPAC. They all are involved in this. There's very few of these Republicans who I could put up on one hand that I have respect for. So let's be very clear about that. And the same thing with Democrats. There's almost none that I could put up on one hand that I have any kind of respect for at all. So it is a uniparty. And so I don't know, and who is responsible for this? Was it a deep state attempt to silence President Trump, to take him down because he's not going to play ball with their plans and wants to defund large portions of the deep state, wants to legitimately drain the swamp this time? The concerns of Colonel McGregor. I just will say this. Colonel McGregor, who's been a guest on our show, he worked for the Trump administration. He's told me, and he said right on our air, his biggest concerns about President Trump, of course, and the uniparty is that there won't be a draining of the swamp. He had the opportunity to do it the first time. Does he hopefully not surround himself with those types of people again? People like Mike Pompeo? Yeah. Like that would be an absolute huge concern to see Mike Pompeo as part of the new Trump administration.
Yes, we saw him, commenting on the Trump assassination over the weekend. And Clayton and I were horrified that Fox News would platform this person who attempted to assassinate Julian Assange. Yeah. So you should, I guess if you want an assassin's perspective, that's what you do, but at least you should put that in the lower third, attempted assassination fellow.
Right.
Right.
Fox News contributor, like Mike Pompeo. Like, how do you get a guy like this as your Fox News contributor? We don't get to forget,
right? Like, yes, absolutely. We are happy that President Trump survived. We are horrified that another civilian died. We should not then, though, forget things about politics that we already knew. And I think that Dan Cohen put this really beautifully on X. He's a friend of the show from Uncaptured Media, that, as president, Trump was mostly faithful to the permanent party, uniparty's war agenda. But he is someone that doesn't always adhere to the diktats of the deep state, and they found that unacceptable. That's how I feel about it. And so, we can't filter out and that's the way everything we don't like.
Yeah, that's the way Colonel McGregor felt about it, right? Yeah. It's like, we got to stop these wars. And so there are things that he had all these people surrounding him, telling him to do certain things, and then he goes along with it. Right. And you hope that, I really, really pray that if he becomes president, that he's not surrounded by these same deep state WEF agenda folks. Again, the Mike Pompeos of the world.
And I want to read this quote from Dan Cohen. He says, "The U.S. has no problem assassinating foreign political figures deemed a threat to its agenda. Only the most naive and ignorant people think that can't happen at home."
Well, CIA is very good at it. Right. They're very good at it. And the deep state, I've said it here publicly on the show many times, they will not allow him to become president of the United States. They will do everything in their power to keep him from becoming president of the United States. And I've said it, and I've said it again, that may, the next step after indictment and all of those things have failed, that they would try to hurt him. And that's exactly, sadly, what happened. And so, he agitates them in a lot of ways. He makes them happy in a lot of ways, continuing certain wars, but he infuriates them in other ways. And that's, I think, the scariest part of all of this. So,
well, and I want to point out, too, Biden just tweeted not too long ago, after J.D. Vance was announced, that they are both a threat to democracy. So I guess stopping that rhetoric only lasted a day. Yeah.
So that was probably a tweet they had already had programmed. They had already had it scheduled, like which of these is going to be vice presidential nominee. And so they'll just shoot that out. It was already scheduled. Okay. Just hit send on that.
Yeah.
He's a threat to democracy. So J.D. Vance is a threat to democracy because he doesn't want to go along with the deep state agenda?
Oh, because he thinks Zelensky is a money-grubbing rat. So,
Right.
yeah, that is absolutely a threat to the democracy of Ukraine. Okay. We'll dive more into what we know about J.D. Vance as this unfolds during the convention this weekend. There's a lot to talk about. So we want to thank you guys all for subscribing to the channel. And, look, we're all here to have a conversation. No one is right. We are not right. You are not right. We all have a conversation, and we present the facts as they emerge, and we try to get to the bottom of it here on the show. That's our goal here. So we don't have an agenda, and we hope that you will join us on this road of navigating this crazy clown world that we're in right now. So thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our community. We really appreciate that. And we'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to subscribe, turn on that little bell notification. We're always live Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll be watching very, very closely the developments over the next 24 hours. Have a great night, everyone.